Hello again, I'm Robert Fithin. Just doing a really basic video about some latest vinyl finds, record pickups that I've gotten, been checking out, some of them again and again, some of them really good, like this first one from Nebula. This is called Heavy Psych. As you can see, it's Heavy Psych, and it's on Heavy Psych Records. They really want you to know that this is some Heavy Psych here. These guys used to be, or a couple of the guys in this band used to be in the band Fu Manchu in the 90s, so I always wondered what happened to those guys. I like that band of Fu Manchu. I liked them a lot more than a lot of what was coming out in the later half of the 90s. If you weren't around then, it was a pretty bad time for rock music. There wasn't a lot of good stuff. Which, by the way, with the vinyl resurgence now, a lot of these really awful, like mid-late 90s CDs are getting released on a record now. Like Creed, if you can imagine that. That's back. Matchbox 20, The Verve Pipe. Who is, but you're not buying this art. Okay, good. Okay, good. Because we don't need, because everybody's always talking about there's limited availability at record plants and, there's pressings that are way behind. And we're going to put out the Verve Pipe, though. And Creed. Okay, anyway, Nebula is the band, and this is really good. This actually first came out in 2009, but I slept on it this whole time. I didn't sleep on I wasn't hearing it. I just got re-released, I believe in 2022, an Italian reissue on this really cool color vinyl. Now, the sound of this is, the stoner rock. They're calling it stoner rock. Fu Manchu used to be, look how cool that is. Fu Manchu, they always had like a skateboard motif with their album covers and their whole aesthetic and everything, but I never considered it part of that kind of sound. They were always more just like a 70s guitar rock type of thing. Their songs are really energetic. They're kind of faster than the songs that are on here. Like I said, this is more like slower stuff, like stoner rock type stuff. But there is some real energy on here as well, especially side 2, Crown of Thorns. Great kind of fast song with some gusto, as it were. Lead Sky, the other side's kind of slower, starting off the side. There's all kinds of great tunes on here. Even the Dream Submarine, which is basically an instrumental, is a great kind of interlude as well. I really, really like this album. I love that color vinyl. Nebula is the band. They're definitely a throwback thing, but they do it really well. Sometimes bands like this that want to sound like their late 60s, early 70s psych stuff, but they're, a current band, sometimes they can overdo it with the sound. Sometimes they just pick on one particular kind of hook or kind of specific kind of motif and just try to write a whole album with it. This is not like that. There's a lot of varied sounds on here, a lot of different tempos. Great album all the way through. It is the perfect balance of something that sounds fresh but still sounds kind of throwback, like what they're going for with the heavy psych of the late 60s, early 70s. And like I said, it's on that great color vinyl. Two negatives, and neither of them have to do with the sound of the music. One thing, I don't know if you can tell this on the color vinyl or not, but there's a lot of dead space here in the dead wax. Like the music only goes up to here, and it's kind of thin sounding. I wish they would spread out the grooves a little more, make this a little fatter, fuller sounding, and not have so much dead space here. I think the reason that happens is they're trying to get away from inner groove distortion. But I'd rather have like maybe 4 minutes of a little bit of inner groove distortion, especially since if you got a better stylus, you don't have a lot of inner groove distortion. I'd rather have that than have the whole record sound kind of thin because the grooves are so tight together. The other thing is, this is going to sound really picky, but I hate this living stereo thing here. I know they're going for like a throwback thing, but living stereo is like an RCA Records type of thing from like the early 60s that was on like classical albums and pop vocal albums and stuff like that. I mean, maybe some Elvis albums, but definitely not Heavy Psych albums. Did not have the living stereo RCA early 60s thing going on. It really throws off the whole thing. Get rid of that living stereo. I don't like that. Really like this album, though. And once again, the band is Nebula, originally released in 2009, and the album's called Heavy Psych with no E. Well, except for in the word heavy. That's where you'll find the E. We went from an album where they really wanted to be 1968, or, to an album where it actually was 1968. This is Eden's Children. They are a trio from Boston. And this is, I got this super cheap. I guess this isn't really a cheap album, though. It's like a $30 median price thing, but I got this for like $5. And I love that cover with the eaten apple. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got the three guys as seeds inside the apple. This is a kind of lighter psychedelic rock. It's not even really psychedelic. It's more like folky kind of rock in a lot of it, but it does pick up and hit kind of hard with the fuzz guitar, so you can check off the fuzz guitar box on this. The recording is done supreme. I mean, the production on here is incredible. Especially for like a band like this that only had a couple of albums, this would be their second and final one. And yeah, the drums really pop out. The guitar sounds like it's right there in the room with you. So the production on this is really stellar. But Eden's Children is who they are. Sure Looks Real is the name of the album. Their first one, I think, is just self-titled. But again, love the cover art. The music on here is pretty good. I'm not blown away by it. I do like some of those tracks are really, really good, especially the first track and a couple of the ones spread in there with the fuzz guitar, kind of a harder rock thing going on. But mostly, like I said, it's kind of more of an acoustic kind of sound. The lead singer, even though he's from Boston, really sounds kind of posh throughout a lot of this, like a very delicate, a very classy kind of vocal on some of these tracks. And it kind of wish they would rock out a little more, but I don't think his voice suits that. They do try to get a little harder on songs like Wings, which you'll hear on side 2, where then his voice kind of gets away from him, and it's like, okay, well, he's probably not supposed to be singing that kind of thing. But overall, I think it's a decent album. I'm glad I have this, especially for the price. And I just love having real stuff like this from the late 60s. That's pretty much, kind of rare. This isn't like incredibly rare or anything, but yeah, I'd never had it before. Eden's Children sure looks real. It does. And now they've eaten the apple, and yet, yeah, I guess, yeah, there's a fly on the apple, and the guys are, I guess they're gone. But yeah, the cover looks like this. I don't really hear anything on the album that sounds like this guitarist is looking here, although there is some great fuzz guitar on here, though, but it's kind of sporadic. But yeah, Eden's Children from 1968. As we move on to something completely different, and that would be Gang of Four. Solid Gold. Reminds me of the Solid Gold Dancers. Anyway, Solid Gold sounds like it would be a compilation album, which that would be a good list to make. Albums with titles that sound like they're compilations, but they're not, like Platinum Jazz from War. Anyway, this came out in 1981. It's their second album, the follow-up to the Entertainment album, which I definitely prefer that one, but this one's pretty good too. It continues. It's a little more, I guess, raw sounding. It's a little more immediate sounding. It doesn't have those groovy kind of, like easily accessible hooks that the first one has. This one takes a few more listens, but it's a pretty good Gang of Four album if this is what you're into. I love the way that they mix like the punk with like almost like a funky like bass line or whatever. I really wished some of the funk metal bands of the early 90s and late 80s would have done it more in this kind of a way than the way they did it. I'm talking about, like Extreme or 24/7 Spies or King's X or any of those. I never was into that stuff, but I like the way that these guys kind of mix the rock and the funk together with kind of a punk attitude, I guess, kind of punk vocal sound. But yeah, this is a very clunky beat, a very just it kind of sounds like things are just falling and thumping, and it just, they really have their own kind of thing going on here. Like the rock mixed with the funk, with the punk, and it works pretty well for Gang of Four. I guess some people would call this post-punk, because that's what a lot of people were doing. The punk bands and the punk scene, you couldn't do that forever. It really only lasted a couple of years before people started mixing in other elements, and that's where you get the term post-punk. But I know for some reason a lot of people absolutely hate that term. And somebody says post-punk, and they'll be like, well, what the hell does that mean? It just means after punk? Well, everything's after punk. Well, so yeah, we're not going to get into that. But yeah, Gang of Four with this wonderful back cover here with the guy being decapitated. And as a matter of fact, speaking of the artwork, I guess the UK one comes with a inner sleeve. This just has the regular Warner Brothers sleeve. This is an original pressing, Winchester, from 1981. Sounds great, by the way. Really had a lot of like deep bass and you crank this up and it just bops, it just bam, bam, boom, boom, the bass and the tight drums and everything. Sounds really, really good. The only thing, it does get to be a little bit similar sounding as the songs go on. You're like, I really wanted a little more variety, kind of like you got with the Entertainment album. But not too bad of a follow-up from Gang of Four. And now again for something completely different. I've waited a long time to get this, actually. This is Aliotta Haynes Jeremiah with Lakeshore Drive from 1973. I've had this CD that's also called Lakeshore Drive for decades. I got that in the mid-90s. So I just love the song Lakeshore Drive. But it's not the same. That's more of a compilation CD. And there's 2 songs that are on this actual album that aren't even on there, which I had not heard before. But I got this at the recent St. Louis record show. And not only is this an album that I've wanted for a while, but it's actually a super early pressing of this. It's the private pressing version, which I don't know if you can see this, but it's basically just a white, plain, sleeve here that they've pasted the cover art on both sides. So this is actually just a piece of paper. I don't want to tear it away or anything, but I think it comes away here. That's just pasted on there. So this is basically a private press version of this. Is still on the Bigfoot label, but it's not mastered by whoever did the mastering later on. Was that Sterling or somebody like that? What was that? Artisan? Somebody mastered the regular release of this. But yeah, this is a very early pressing. It's actually signed by John Jeremiah here and numbered. This is number 400, and I think these early ones were all numbered. So yeah, really glad to have this. This is basically, I don't know how popular this is in other parts of the world or even other parts of the U.S., but in the Midwest, especially the song Lakeshore Drive is just a classic. These guys are from Chicago, and it's big all over the Midwest, especially here in St. Louis. But the piano in that song is great. I just love the song Lakeshore Drive. The piano riff, the whole thing, the harmonies and the lyrics. It sounds sad but fun at the same time. I don't know. It's all about Lakeshore Drive and, of course, how the letters spell out LSD. Just like the sign, if you're not from Chicago or you're not familiar with Chicago, the sign that you may have seen online where the one street's closed, so take LSD. Like, hey, the road's closed, so we might as well just drop some acid. Hell with it. It means to take Lakeshore Drive instead. But anyway, great song. And the rest of this on here is pretty good in the country rock kind of Midwestern vein of the early 70s. And, you might thinking, well, what are all the songs about LSD? No, all the songs are not about LSD. There's a song on here called Snow Queen that's about cocaine. There's a song on here called Uppers and Downers that are about pills. Marijuana gets a mention. In another song. So no, it's not all about LSD. But yeah, Aliotta, I keep wanting to put, for years, I want to say Aliotta Jeremiah Haynes. I never can get the Haynes and Jeremiah in the right order. They should just switch those names. Anyway, Lakeshore Drive from 1973. Rest of the album is pretty good, but that title track is just absolutely, I've loved it for decades. So yeah, really glad to get this at a great price. It's like $5. I don't know how much this is normally, especially this early version, but unfortunately, all 3 of these guys have passed away. They passed away in the 2010s, and so that's kind of sad, but yeah, great treasure here. Glad I found this for the price I did. Lakeshore Drive, love that song. The rest of the album is pretty good as well, so yeah, early pressing, awesome. And finally, we have The Moving Sidewalks. I don't see under my feet. This is the band that Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top started off in. The album's called Flash, and it features 4 guys here, 2 on the front, 2 on the back. I believe that's Billy Gibbons eating something, probably laced. This is a kind of a psych garage rock blues album. A little bit of everything in here. I can't stand that phrase. I don't even know why I said that. A little bit of everything. That's what they say when you're going to buy. Whenever you call up and somebody's got records for sale, or they've advertised they're having a yard sale or something, and there's records, they're like, can you tell me a little more? Send them an email. Oh, what kind of records you have? Oh, a little bit of everything. And you get there, and it's like everything from Barbra Streisand to Neil Diamond. Everything. Everything from Perry Como to Harry Belafonte. Everything. A little bit of everything. Do you have any punk rock? Do you have any 90s grunge? Do you have any new wave? Do you have any, EDM? Do you have any heavy metal? then you don't have a little bit of everything, then do you? Anyway, Moving Sidewalks, the album's called Flash, and it does feature blues. It's got the psych stuff. It's got a garage rock. It's, these guys just kind of throwing everything out there that 1968 had to offer, just trying to make something stick. And a lot of it's really good. And with Billy Gibbons on the scene, with not only, of course, the guitar, but also vocals, it actually, you can hear a little ZZ Top in here. I believe the drummer started off in ZZ Top as well before Frank Beard. The other two guys got drafted to the Army, and then that was the end of the Moving Sidewalks. This is their only album that they've released, and you can have an original copy of this. There's only one right now selling on Discogs for just under $2,000. Better be pretty good for that price, but it is actually, pretty good. There's, great blues stuff on here with harmonica. There's mostly it's garage rock oriented, but there is this trippy song that ends things called Reclips, with all these tape effects and voices and bits of dialogue and the entire vocal track done backwards. So these guys are all about the trippy stuff, and like I said, but mostly a lot of the blues rock and garage rock type stuff in here. So a great listen, pretty much all the way through. Some really cool stuff on here, and of course you get that Billy Gibbons vocal to remind you, hey, this is proto ZZ Top, and I'm a huge fan of ZZ Top, especially the 70s stuff. So yeah, I'm really glad to finally pick this up. The reissue of this, there's one that has a completely different cover with like a yellow background and the four guys on the front. I'm not really sure why they did that, but because this just screams what this album is. You got them out here in the country, so there's your country rock blues type stuff. You got them in a pink overlay here of color, so there's your psychedelia. You got them basically sitting down to a table eating. So there's like your hometown garage, Rob, we're just going to take a photo of the band at the table, kitchen table. So literally everything and the kitchen table. It's the Moving Sidewalks and Flash. And that's going to do it for this edition of my latest vinyl finds. I thought some pretty interesting things that I finally got my hands on. Really glad to get the Aliotta Haynes Jeremiah. There, I said it in the right order that time. Moving Sidewalks especially, and Nebula as well. Heavy Psych. That was really good. That's probably my favorite out of all of these, actually. The one that just came out, in this century. I'm Robert Fithen. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll talk to you again soon.